Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Honestly, today I wanted to do something a bit different, or really different in general. I wanted to read you stories, and this is something I like to call Spooky Sundays. Either Spooky Sunday or Spooky Saturday. I like Spooky Sunday. Spooky Sunday sounds a bit better. Or if you guys want to choose the day, go ahead. But I'm going with Sunday because Sunday seems to be the better day when we all chill. Everyone relaxes. No one has work, or if you do have work, I'm sorry. But today I'm gonna read you a creepypasta. Again, not mine. Title is 2.4 miles per hour. It's written by G.H. Appleby. I think I'm saying that right. I'll put the link down to where it is so you can go ahead and check it out for yourself. If you ever just want to read it on your own, you don't necessarily need me. So I'll go ahead and read this to you and tell me what you think in the comments. Yeah? I know death. I know death very well. I've known death for 11 years and 3 months now. Ever since the car accident in 2006, I've been on the run from death. I'm convinced it's a mistake, a mix-up somehow. I am alive. I survived the accident, but yet death, or as I refer to him, take from the top, or as I refer to it as Mr. Grimm, has been following me in an unrelenting effort to touch me so he can take me. I've had time to hypothesize that death is a process designed by God or Mother Nature or aliens. I don't fucking know. This process has been tried and true for thousands of years. A person on earth dies, death or the Grim Reaper or the Angel of Death comes down to touch that dead or dying person. The soul or life force of that person is released. The soul or life force is a brilliant shine of light, glowing warmth. This light, just like in the movies, floats up as the person passes. I've seen this light. It is beautiful. This is the process that happens over and over again in war and on deathbeds, at hospitals, house fires, drownings, terrorist attacks, suicides, and of course, car accidents. My name is Jason Turner. I've been on the run for 11 years. This is my story. I was in a fatal car accident 11 years and 3 months ago. I died there in the wreckage, along with 3 old college buddies from my days at Fitchburg State University. Paramedics revived me after determining that I did not have a heartbeat for approximately 6 minutes. Once resuscitated, they loaded me onto a stretcher and wheeled me to an awaiting EMS van. I remember it was a dark and rainy night. I was conscious, barely lucid, but I saw what I saw. Death came for my 3 old college friends, 2 of which were not wearing seatbelts and were jettisoned 50 feet from the crash site. Another was a bloody pulp glued to a passenger seat. I watched and saw a dark, blurry, translucent figure not float or fly, but walk to each of my friends and touch them, releasing their life force, their soul. I saw the golden bright light orbs radiating upwards from each of my friends as the paramedics loaded me in the back of the ambulance. As the back doors of the ambulance closed, I saw through the back windows of the van the dark and dreary apparition turned and started walking toward the ambulance. As far as I could see, this ghostly figure was not visible to the police or the paramedics on the scene. I thought I was dreaming, so I laid my head down and closed my eyes. The ambulance pulled out on the road moments later, heading to Bay State Hospital, 25 miles. I don't recall much more after that. According to my parents, they got me to Bay State for x-rays and MRI scans. I was then helicoptered to UMass Memorial to a special wing for trauma patients. This hospital was a little over 100 miles away. I became conscious the next day with my parents by my side. My recovery was miraculous. I had cracked ribs, a concussion, broken wrist, and a number of deep lacerations. The good news was no brain trauma or internal organ damage. All things considered, I felt pretty good for being dead for 6 minutes, and I was fairly lucid even after the sedatives and painkillers were administered. I can remember my mom spoon-feeding me some applesauce and raising me up so I could sip on a straw. My dad sat on my left side giving me updates on the Red Sox. They were kind enough to go to my apartment and bring me a change of clothes. That's when I found out from my parents that a drunk driver was the cause of our accident. The next day they raised up my bed so I can look out the window and check out the beautiful spring day below. My room was on the 6th floor of the hospital. The view showed me the backdrop of the city of Worcester, Massachusetts. I saw busy streets in the background with a nice park sprawling with green grass. playscapes for the kids, and picnic tables. It was a beautiful day. So many people were in the park. Down below my window was the hospital courtyard, where many hospital workers, along with some patients with family, were eating their lunches and soaking up the warm May sun. Across the street, I saw that same blurry apparition that I thought I dreamt about. This time, it's noon on a sunny and clear day. There was no mistaking what I saw. The figure took on a human form, though its height had to be well over 8 feet tall, as it towered over the other people in the park. People who went on playing and socializing as this thing lumbered right by them. Nobody noticed anything. The pace of this ghostly figure, Mr. Grimm, was eerie. He certainly took his time, patiently maintaining the pace of a little more than a stroll, but definitely not a brisk power walk. Mr. Grimm did have legs though. I did not actually see his feet, as his legs blurred to a foggy mist where his feet would have just hit the ground. Its face had no definition, no features, just a whirling dust storm for a head. It was constantly changing and always swirling around, never taking on a static shape. There was no noticeable hood or shroud over its head, as noted in ancient folklore. And Mr. Grimm, based on movies and myths, did not carry a scythe. Its arms hung down well below the knees, tapering off to one lung protrusion. Call it a single finger at the end of each hand. I remember I got off my bed and wheeled my IV stand closer to the window, allowing myself to get a better view and clear fog of any medication I might have been on. Mr. Grimm walked past the park into busy street traffic, buzzing left and right. The cars plowed right through him as if he were invisible. Mr. Grimm walked onto the hospital grounds, approaching the hospital workers lazing on the grass or sitting on a picnic table eating their lunch. I watched with morbid fascination. Nobody took notice. A voice in my head reminded me of the importance of self-preservation. Something told me that I really do not want to die again. I needed to get moving, not giving a flying fuck about my condition. I removed my IV, found the bag of clothes my mom brought, and got dressed. Mr. Grimm reached the hospital courtyard entrance doors, and I looked out the window one last time as he glided through the doors without opening them. All my primal warning lights were going off. This was no dream. I laced up my boots and threw on a hoodie over my t-shirt, put on my Red Sox hat, grabbed my wallet, cell phone, and walked into the hallway of the trauma wing of UMass Memorial. I pulled down the sleeve of my hoodie to cover my hospital wrist tag. I found the elevators and pressed the L for lobby. Exiting the elevator, I looked left and right for the exits. Left was the rear of the hospital where the courtyard was. I felt nauseous and grabbed a wall rail for a good 30 seconds. I was sweating and I felt sick. The main hospital entrance was to the right. I regained some energy and started walking towards the main doors, but something made me stop in my tracks and look behind me. Emerging through the double doors of the east wing of the hospital was Death himself, using the same slow, methodical walk. Almost casually, I stood there in between the two sets of sliding glass doors as he continued to walk right towards me. Passing by hospital workers in the hallway, going about their business, I saw Mr. Grimm blend with and then walk right through a man in a wheelchair. Nobody saw anything. Nobody said anything. I walked outside, powered up my cell phone, and I called my father to pick up, knowing it's going to take him 45 minutes to arrive. I had to keep moving. I was in no condition to run, so I briskly walked down the main street in front of UMass Memorial. I looked back to find Mr. Grimm 100 yards away outside the front of the hospital main doors. He maintained slow pursuit. I found out that if I could keep up a pace faster than him, I can increase my distance between them. So that's what I did for 45 minutes. Walked the streets of Worcester, phone in hand, directing my dad to where my location was. At last, my dad showed up, and I hopped into his Buick. I buckled up and spun my head to the rear. Mr. Grimm was nowhere to be seen. After answering a barrage of questions from my dad, I managed to close my eyes and doze off for the 50-mile drive to my parents' house on the Belmont Street in Sturbridge. I tried to get much needed rest at my parents' house, but my head was whirling from what was supposedly chasing me. My pain meds were wearing off, so my body was achy and sore. I did manage to get some intermittent sleep during the night, but I swore I must have woke up every hour, looking out the window, waiting. Waiting for what? I tried to explain what I saw to my parents, but they pretty much shushed me and told me I needed rest. They remind me of the crushing loss and trauma that came with the accident. Losing 3 close friends and nearly dying myself. They both urged me to lay down and rest. Maybe I was imagining things because of my concussion, but all those rational reassurances flew out the window when my creeping friend returned to my parents' street that next morning. After breakfast, I gazed out the living room window to check the weather conditions. It was there, and when I saw him, Mr. Grimm was 200 yards away, the end of the Belmont Avenue. I walked outside and stood on the lawn looking down the street. Yes, there. He was shuffling his feet, taking his goddamn time. I called for my dad, and he came outside, and he stood on front of the lawn with me looking down the street. Dad, look down the street. Tell what you see, I asked. What? He paused to look, then moved his gaze down the direction. I was looking. Okay, I see kids on the bikes. Miss Flanagan walking her dog on the sidewalk. A car? Answered my dad. I watched as the 3 kids on the bikes zigged and zagged around Mr. Grimm, unknowing that death was in their path. Dad, look! You don't see that large thing, a dark figure walking down the middle of the fucking street? I asked. Jason, let's just go inside, get some rest, he said in a counseling, there fashion. Can you bring me to my apartment, like, right now? I pleaded. I don't know, Jason. Maybe that's not a good idea right now, my dad answered. After hearing me start to freak out, my dad relented and agreed to bring me to my apartment in Newton, 55 miles away. As we pulled out of the driveway, I looked back to see death just 3 houses away, still walking steadily in the middle of the road. When I got to my apartment, I felt I had some time. I felt safe for the moment till Mr. Grimm tracks my location. Crazy at the time, but that's what was going in my head. I grabbed 3 Advil and a late morning beer and sat down at my kitchen table. I grabbed a pad of lined paper, a pen, and a calculator. I needed to get this down on paper to better understand it. That's when I worked out the math. This thing, this angel of death, can only walk when he's after a soul to release. Can't fly or float, take the subway or teleport. Mr. Grimm walks. He walks a little slower than a typical brisk walk, which an average is 3.2 miles per hour. So I estimated Grimm walks probably close to 2.4 miles per hour. The distance from the accident site to Bay State Hospital is about 25 miles, which takes 10.4 hours to walk at a pace of 2.4 miles. I was in Bay State only about 6 hours before they life flighted me out of there to UMass Memorial. I didn't see Grimm at the time, but I bet he was close. Now the distance between Bay State and Memorial is 103 miles, which would take about 43 hours to walk. On my second day recovery at UMass Memorial, I saw him across the street walking through the park. My total time at Memorial could have been a total of 36 to 40 hours. I couldn't recall exactly that time. Then I calculated the distance from Memorial, where my dad picked me up, to my parents' house in Sturbridge. It is approximately 50 miles, which equates to 20.8 hours of walk time. I saw Grimm on Belmont Street the next morning around 9:30 a.m. while at my parents', which kind of made sense because my dad brought me back to his house at 1:30 p.m., about a 20-hour time span. Now, from my parents' street to my apartment in Newton is about 55 miles, which would take 23 hours to walk. So if my theory is correct, my personal angel of death, Mr. Grimm, would be arriving on my street approximately at 4 a.m. tomorrow morning. I needed to prepare. That was over 11 years ago. I can still remember packing clothes, filling up the gas tank of my SUV, and withdrawing money from my savings. It was time to go on a road trip. I called my manager to tell him I needed time to recover from the accident and attended services for my college buddies. After all the preparing, I set my alarm to allow time for a good late afternoon nap. I needed the rest. If I was to stay up until 4 a.m. to wait and see if my friend arrives, then only then would my theory be correct. It was risky, but I had to know exactly how to play this game. I woke up from my nap around 6 p.m. I had dinner and started tanking up on coffee as I needed to stay awake through the night. At 2 a.m., not taking any chances, I went out to my SUV, parking it at the end of the parking lot with good views in all directions. Street lights and overhead parking lot lights gave away to good visibility. I made it to a point to watch the street in the northeast direction, which would be the direction of my parents' house. Sure enough, at 4:17 a.m., here comes Mr. Slowpoke, plodding along. My theory is correct. This shit is happening. I can recall saying, "Catch me if you can, motherfucker," as I started my car and pulled out in the opposite direction. So I hit the road running, and I haven't stopped since. That seems so long ago. This is my life now, traveling, making calculations, staying in motels, B&Bs, and camping. Sometimes driving, Mostly flying. I find that flying to far destinations allows me more time at that place, sometimes up to 4 weeks. I also decided to do this, keep a journal on my laptop. How do I do this financially? Well, I had to quit my job. My parents think I work an IT consultant who travels the world. I do stay with them from time to time. I do stay with them for a week, fully aware of knowing how far Mr. Grimm is from me at the time. Anyway, there was a sizable settlement from the accident that I received a few years back. Also during this freakish game of hide and seek, my grandfather passed and left me enough to afford all of my traveling expenditures these past 6+ years. The numbers don't lie. This Reaper dude covers 57.6 miles a day, 403.2 miles in a week, and 1,613 miles in a month. I then subtract my exact travel time getting to my destination, and from that I'll know approximately when to pack up and move again. As a safeguard, I generally hit the road 2 to 3 days before, just in case my calculations are off. This system, though exhausting, works. It keeps me alive, and I have not seen Mr. Grimm since outside my apartment in Newton over 11 years ago. I do not miss him. If I can borrow the lyrics of a popular Blue Oyster Cult song, don't fear the Reaper. I really don't fear the Reaper anymore. I don't. I have it all figured out. This is now my life until I'm too old to travel or I run out of money somehow. I am not scared anymore. I've accepted this cat and mouse game. Okay, I guess I need to mention my weight gain. I ballooned up to 240 pounds. I was a fit 190 pound 11 years ago when I was 26 years old. Now at 37 and frighteningly out of shape, I'm a traveling slug. Living on the road is a killer on the waistline. Relationships? Chicks? That's funny. I'll hook up with a girl in a bar for a one night stand occasionally, but having a girlfriend, building a relationship, falling in love, marriage, having children, I've accepted it's not going to happen. Let's talk about traveling. I am a globetrotter. I am the most frequent of all flyers. I realize I need to maximize my distance from Grimm, which means maximizing my travel miles. No more driving 50 miles, resting for 50.6 hours, then moving again. That's just not sustainable. I now either drive or fly long distance. This leaves me anywhere from 1 to 4 weeks to settle, relax, and not worry about Mr. Grimm filling me up. When flying, I usually start by going coast to coast. So say I go from DC to California, then I start my X pattern from California. I jet to Portland, Maine. From Maine, I go diagonal to El Paso, Texas, El Paso to Myrtle Beach, SC. Then from Myrtle, I bounce to Seattle, Washington. Then Seattle, straight diagonal to Miami. This crisscross country pattern allows me to stay at destination for almost a month. At each destination for a month. That's just for the United States. I do travel overseas. I have stayed in all of Europe, South America, Shanghai, and Australia. All of those very expensive overseas trips give me peace of mind for a full 4 weeks. Also, I'll pop in for a week to stay and visit my parents' house when planned travel patterns allow it. I always carry a wall calendar to hang from a wall or fridge wherever I'm staying. I mark my day of arrival and departure and X out each day in between. This calendar is key to keeping me focused and organized. I cannot afford to become complacent or sloppy because I will lose my soul if I do. I also carry a folded map of the USA, then I marked up the document, my travels. I try to approximate where exactly Grimm is on the map, but it's hard to do without actually visual sighting. No way I'm doing that again. Driving has its benefits and negatives. Obviously, it's cheaper than flying. With driving, I get to travel alone, listen to my own music, I have control and flexibility in a car, unlike a plane. I also enjoy meeting people on both coasts. In the heartland and the deep south of America, these are some great Americans, really good people. I try to meet as many people as possible when I'm running. I'd be too lonely if I didn't. But the wear and tear of the automobile is a bitch. I trade in my car for a newer car every 3 years because of the mileage I put on the vehicle. I need new rubber on the wheels every 6 months and an oil change every month. I try to cover at least 500 miles a full day of driving. I'll stay in a motel or go camping for a few days, then hit the road to drive another 500 miles. Each of the 500 mile legs give me about 5 days of leisure after subtracting my actual drive time. Remember, I'm going 70 miles per hour, but he's going 2.4 miles per hour. I do like camping. It's fairly cheap. I camped at the most national parks in America, and I met so many nice generous fellow campers, some of who had me over their campsite for cookouts and drinks on many occasions. How I yearn to tell them my story while sitting around a campfire, sipping on Jack Daniel's honey, but I know that I can't. My life is a lonely life. As for Mr. Grimm, do I believe he's still shuffling his non-existent feet in the pursuit of me? Yes, I do. I can't just let myself believe that maybe he called it quits. Game over? No. I truly believe he's still out there, honed into my signal. No mountains, oceans, valleys, rivers, or forests can slow him down. 2.4 miles per hour? Always. I question why this is happening to me all the time. Why me? I'm alive. Doesn't he know? Why can't Mr. Grimm get recalled? About the mission, dude. I'm tired. Okay, so let's get back to financing this permanent vacation. As I mentioned before, I pulled in some cash from the insurance settlement from the accident, $250,000. That came my second year of running. In my 5th year of running, my grandfather passed, leaving me with the title of his cottage in Falmouth, Cape Cod. I sold it and garnered another $350,000. Pretty good haul so far, right? Well, here's what I'm burning through each month. $1,500 for motels, camping, $500 in gas, $1,500 for food, and an average of $1,000 a month for airfare. That grim motherfucker is costing me $4,500 to $5,000 a month. What's his problem anyways? Nevertheless, that equates to almost $60,000 a year to run from him. Oh, by the way, did I mention I'm on my 11th year? Do the math. Never mind. I've done it already. Spending $5,000 a month for 11 years comes to approximately $660,000. So I had, at one time, a total of $600,000 from the insurance settlement and my grandfather's estate. Where did I get the rest? Well, I took out a bank loan last year for $60,000 that I never intended to pay back. Also borrowed $10,000 from my parents 2 years ago. All those totals helped finance me for nearly 10 years. I'm into my 11th year and now I have a total of $5,755 in my savings. I don't know what I'm gonna do. What do I do when the money runs? Where can I go? Nobody will believe me. Do I just toss in the flag? Mr. Grimm, you win? I recently discovered something that brings me hope and optimism. I now feel that I have a purpose. I am not giving up. I stumbled upon it quite by accident. I can't describe the wonderful feeling that has come over me. This, if true, will keep me going. I found out there are others like me. That's actually really good. This is actually really cool. Some people say when I read the comments, some people say there's going to be a part 2. I mean, I feel like a lot of times a part 2 when it comes to like a creepypasta could ruin it, you know? It's good just to have that illusion or maybe that question. You know, there's so many like horror movies or horror stories that are good because you don't really know what happened till the end. So everyone's open to interpretation in their own way. But no, this was good. I really liked it. Everyone's giving it like a 8.8, 8.86 out of 10. So yeah, I would say about around there. It's 8 out of 10 definitely. This was a great story. I thought I was going to get a Christmas story because I think it was in the Christmas section, but either way, it was awesome. I don't care. But yeah, tell me what you guys think of this. I hope to do more, honestly. But yeah, tell me what you think of this. And I'll see you next time for the next Spooky Sunday.